over the past month or so, I've been appalled by what this guy, Donald Trump, is saying. But recently, I've gone from appalled to actually horrified and terrified that he's actually going to become president and America is going to end up like Nazi Germany. Now, a lot of people have compared Donald Trump to Hitler. But what a lot of people don't realize is Donald Trump seems so much like Hitler because he's actually following Hitler's philosophy. Donald Trump's ideology can be summed up in 2 words: Mein Trumpf. Because he bases his ideology off of Hitler's book, Mein Kampf. The only difference between Donald Trump's Mein Trumpf philosophy and Hitler's Mein Kampf philosophy is that Donald Trump is against Muslims, whereas Hitler was against Jews. So I was reading about Hitler on the internet, and about specifically what Hitler said in Mein Kampf. And one of the things that Hitler said is that people of German heritage should try to rise to political power in every country in the world that they live in. Donald Trump is of German heritage, and he sleeps with a copy of Mein Kampf next to his bed. So I can only assume that he's actually following Hitler's advice by trying to rise to political power. The President of the United States is probably one of the most important politicians in the world. And that's Donald Trump's goal, to rule America and eventually rule the world. When I hear about some of the things that Donald Trump has said, he wants to close mosques or put them under surveillance. He wants to create a database of all Muslims and give them special ID cards and warrantless searches. He says he would have supported putting the Japanese people in internment camps during World War II, and he says we're at war right now, which means he wants to put all the Muslims in camps. And now he wants to ban all Muslims from traveling to the United States. Kitty, you're making it hard to make a YouTube video. Donald Trump sounds like he could be Hitler's reincarnation or something. He's scary. So in honor of Donald Trump, I went to Starbucks today, and I got a cup of coffee. I noticed that the cup was plain red, so I wrote my anti-Donald Trump logo on the cup. See? It says, "Hail Donald," and it's crossed out with the standard anti-symbol. See that? That's the anti-Donald Trump logo. Cat, don't look at the computer. I'm going to talk about this a little more in another video, but Donald Trump is scary. And if you're not afraid of him, you should be, because he will eventually go after other people other than the specific groups he's already threatened to go after. He will go after you, basically, is what I'm saying. Even if you are one of the people who currently supports him because you think that he's on your side, Donald Trump is not on your side. Donald Trump is really only on his own side. I mean, he's funded by somebody other than just himself. He's actually a part of a global agenda. The people who are really in control of the world are planning the next Holocaust. And they're the same people who planned the last one. Now, before you tell me that they can't be the same people who planned the last one, that those people are already dead, just stop for a minute and actually look it up. The same group of people, even though they might not be the exact same individuals, the same group of people that put Hitler into power is trying to put Donald Trump into power. And I'm not going to go into deep detail about that group of people right now, because I just uploaded a YouTube video that was a really long rant about the news, where I did go into great detail about who those people are and what their ultimate plans are. And you can watch that video by clicking on this link. The link will also reappear at the end of this video. Donald Trump is trying to promote the belief that all Muslims are terrorists and they're all dangerous and they all need to be watched by the government and that maybe they shouldn't even be allowed in America. And first of all, that's not true. All Muslims are not terrorists. They don't need to be continuously watched or monitored or harassed by the government. And if you don't believe that, if you think that Donald Trump is right and all Muslims are terrorists, I would encourage you to talk to somebody who's actually Muslim and ask them. Go up to somebody, even if it's a random stranger, who's Muslim, and ask them, does your religion promote terrorism? I can't even ask that question without laughing on camera. Because of course they're going to tell you no. I mean, of course. I mean, let's say that you're a Donald Trump supporter and you're a Christian. If somebody came up to you and they said, does your religion promote terrorism? What would you say, really? Of course you're going to say no. And of course Muslims are going to say no because of course Islam doesn't promote terrorism any more than Christianity does. Look, I'll show you a picture as an example. I'm going to show you a picture of some Christians having a protest. Actually, I really need to talk about these Christians because they're planning on having a protest here in California, and it's a protest that I plan on going to counter-protest their protest and to film a video documentary about it. They're called the Westboro Baptist Church. The Westboro Baptist Church is a Christian church that has some kind of big problem with the U.S. government and a lot of the things that happen in American culture. And they have these awful, disturbing protests. But because a lot of the family members are lawyers, they've sued and they've taken their lawsuits all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled in their favor. They ruled that because freedom of religion is guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution, that these people have the right to have these protests. Let's look at some pictures of their protests. Here are some of the Westboro Baptist Church's protests. Look at that. Thank God for 9/11. Thank God for IEDs. And up at the top, it says U.S. Army, fag troops. And there's a little picture that looks like one guy bending over to have another guy do something unspeakable to his butt. Wow. So, the Westboro Baptist Church recently announced that they're planning to protest the funerals of the people who died in the San Bernardino shooting. Their protest will probably look something like this protest that they had to protest the funerals of the people who died in another mass shooting. There's one of their protests, and over here, an anti-protest, where people are protesting against their protest. Now, first of all, if you're a Christian, you're probably screaming at this point that Christianity does not promote this. And that's my point. That's my point. Neither does Islam. Just because a group of people who claim to be Muslims call themselves the Islamic State and claim they're committing atrocities in the name of all Muslims, that doesn't mean that all Muslims agree with them. Just like you do not agree with these people just because you're a Christian and they claim to preach the true form of Christianity. But I'd also like to use the Westboro Baptist Church as an example to make another point. Just imagine this. Imagine if a bunch of Muslims showed up to protest those funerals and they had signs that were just like these signs. Thank God for 9/11. Thank God for IEDs. Well, what do you think would happen to them? They'd probably get dragged away to Guantanamo, where they'd be for the rest of their lives without any evidence or charges. Or what if bunch of Muslims did this. Look at this. What are we looking at here? What are we looking at in these pictures? These are armed white supremacists protesting with very large guns in front of a mosque. Now just imagine if a bunch of Muslims armed with very large guns protested in front of a church. They'd be dragged away to Guantanamo as well. My point is, Donald Trump's claims about Muslims are not logical. And the fact that he's convinced all these people that he's right is really, really scary. And the fact that he wants to take away the rights, the constitutional rights of certain Americans, and also the fact that he suggested that it's okay to do horrible things, such as torturing suspected terrorists, it makes him really, really scary. And Donald Trump has exactly the same goals as ISIS. And if you're one of his supporters, you might say, how can that be? What is this woman talking about? ISIS is the Islamic State. Donald Trump is against Muslims. No. ISIS is against Muslims. They want to kill most of the Muslims in the world. Look, ISIS has made all kinds of declarations of what makes a Muslim a sinner, and some of the things they've said, like any Muslim who's ever voted in an election, even for a Muslim candidate, they consider to be a sinner. ISIS is not a pro-Muslim organization. ISIS is an organization that wants to kill as many Muslims as they can, and they were created by the CIA and by the owners of large corporations to start a very large war so they can make money off of selling weapons to the governments who are going to fight that war. And I wouldn't be surprised if the same people who are funding ISIS are funding Donald Trump, because he's doing exactly what they want. Because ISIS wants to divide Muslims from the societies that they're living in. They want Muslims to experience prejudice and hate crimes, both from the citizens and the governments, to drive them out of the countries they're living in. And they'll then end up with nowhere to go because, as you can see from the example of the Syrian refugees, no country wants to take in a large number of Muslim refugees because they're afraid that they're going to be terrorists. So where are they going to go? They're going to get forced to join the Islamic State. At least that's what their plan is. And Donald Trump is doing exactly what they want. And that's the other reason that he really appalls me. Donald Trump and ISIS have such similar goals that they're like a two-headed monster. Actually, they're more like two heads on a multi-headed monster. Roar!
Adrienne, I win.
And as I said in my last episode of Adrienne Floreen Comments on the News, that conveniently timed so-called terrorist attack in San Bernardino, whether it was real or staged, certainly does not prove that all Muslims are terrorists. And it certainly does not prove that Donald Trump is right. Because Donald Trump knows all of this. He's making it appear like he's just seeing the news and reacting to it. He saw that there was a terrorist attack on the news, and he saw that one of the people who committed that attack was a foreigner who came to America on a visa. So he reacted to it by saying, America should immediately ban all Muslims from entering the United States because of what just happened. But this is all an act. It's all staged. He's not just seeing the news and reacting to it. It's all part of their plan. I really can't understand why there aren't mass protests in the streets against Donald Trump and some of the things he said. But I also understand that people don't really feel like protesting is going to actually do anything to make a difference. In fact, they probably already know that if they have mass protests, they're only going to end up getting arrested or getting beaten up by the police. So what can people do? What can we actually do to defeat Donald Trump's ideology and to support the right to religious freedom in America? I figured that out. I figured it out when I was reading news articles on the internet, and I came across this. We are all Jews, in memory of Rhodey Edmonds, a true American hero. So this is the story of this guy that was an American in the army in World War II, and a large group of American soldiers were captured by the Nazis. The Nazis ordered all the Jews to step forward. And they all knew that the Nazis' policy when they captured a large number of foreign soldiers was to separate all the Jews out and send them to the death camps. So when the Nazis pointed a gun at this guy's head and said, "Which one of your men are Jewish?" he said, "We are all Jewish." And they said, "Tell us which one of you are Jewish or we'll shoot you in the head." At that point, on his command, every single one of his men stepped forward, and they all said, "We are all Jewish." And because of that, because the Nazis knew that they were not all Jewish, and they didn't want to send all of them to the death camps, they only wanted to send the Jews to the death camps. So they didn't send any of them to the death camps. So this guy, even though he's dead, is receiving an award from the state of Israel for his extraordinary act of courage. So what we need to save America from Donald Trump is all Americans who disagree with Donald Trump and his Nazi propaganda need to be extraordinarily courageous. If you hear about Muslims being harassed or threatened or feeling unsafe in your area, and you want to do something to stop it, you should do this. Check it out. This is what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to tie my dreads up with a string, actually with 2 strings. See, I tied my dreads up with a 2nd string so they're all up. I'm really tired of hearing Donald Trump-inspired Islamophobic comments. Actually, they're worse than Islamophobic comments. That technically means fear of Muslims. The comments that Donald Trump says and inspires people to say are actual hate speech against Muslims. So I've decided that I'm going to do this to dispel anti-Muslim hate speech in my community. If you're also offended by Donald Trump and the reaction that he's inspired in the American public, you can also do this. I'm going to wear a hijab. Yes, a hijab. And I'm going to go out in public. I'm going to take my son to the park, go shopping at the grocery store, go to the mall to buy Christmas presents for my Christian friends and relatives. And if anyone comes up to me and asks me if I'm a Muslim, I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say we are all Muslims. And then I'm going to explain to them the story of the man who saved a bunch of people from the Nazis by saying we are all Jewish, and why all Muslims aren't terrorists, and why women in America currently have the right to dress however they want, whether it's like this or like this, and they have the right to be whatever religion they want to be. And Donald Trump is trying to take that right away, not just away from women, but away from all Americans. We can't let him do that. We just can't. But especially support the rights of women, because I feel especially strongly about women's rights to dress however they want to, or to practice their religion. When Donald Trump says that he wants to close all the mosques in America, I think about this. Indian woman in battle against Mumbai mosque ban. See, in a lot of countries, especially Muslim countries, Islam is like a private club for men, where the women aren't even allowed to go into the mosques. In America, women are allowed to go into the mosque if they want to. What was that ding? Oh, this computer is saying it has a low battery. So you got Muslim women coming to America just because they can go to the mosque here if they want to. They can actually participate in their religion.
Shut up.
And Donald Trump wants to take away their right to do that. That pisses me off. That makes me think that all women in America should start to go to the mosque. Go to your local mosque, even if you're not a Muslim, even if you're a Christian or Jewish or no matter what religion you are, just to support women's rights to do that. You know, when it stops raining outside, I might even take a prayer rug down to the park and pray to Allah right out in the open, right in front of everybody. Because if something is legal in America and people are getting harassed for doing it, that's why I smoked my medical marijuana on YouTube, because it's legal. But I've still gotten harassed for doing it, severely harassed. They turned off the electricity at my house for 2 years, and I had to live with flashlights and solar power because I used medical marijuana. And it's 100% legal where I live in the state of California. And it's even more legal in Colorado and Washington and now Oregon. They've got recreational marijuana. And people are still getting harassed for it. We gotta put a stop to this bullshit where people in America are losing their rights, and even when they go to great lengths to get their rights back, such as Colorado voting to legalize marijuana, the police still can't even respect that. And the government officials still can't even respect that. And they're passing all these laws to regulate it now. And people are still getting harassed by the police. And all this bullshit has to stop. I mean, I'm sorry for cursing. I'm really sorry for cursing. I never curse on YouTube, but this is bullshit. This is America. It's a free country. It's supposed to be a free country. Now let's keep it that way. America. So please, help me to stop Donald Trump. Like this video, share it with all of your friends, and watch my other videos on YouTube.
Oh wait, you were here at the cat lady. No, did you see Francilla? She came up like rubbing up against my face, nibbling on my hair. There you go. She was nibbling on my hair.
Want to try some hot sauce?
I like Tabasco sauce.
It's not that hot. It's pretty good actually. It's like the mildest hot sauce. It's like Taco Bell hot sauce.
Oh yeah, that's not hot at all. When you put it that way, it's not hot at all.
Yeah.
Taco Bell, they had a really hot seasoning at one point, a sauce at one point in time, but I don't know what happened to it. They recalled it for some reason.
You want more hot sauce?